Moving on, issue 2. The national government has spent so much political capital building up the nanny state mythology that they're now too terrified to implement any social policy for fear of waking up their favourite bogeyman in the public conscience. Is the decision to not lower the drink driving blood alcohol limit a gutless move by a government too frightened to look nanny state, or sensible procrastination to do more studies? Tim, as a reformed libertarian, whatever that means, you believe the nanny state is a real and living threat to Western civilization and that it lives under the bed of Peter Creswell from Not PC blog. 20 dead New Zealanders a week from direct alcohol-related causes. Is the free market at work? You'll be thrilled more New Zealanders are driving legally drunk, won't you?
All I can say is, first of all, I don't drive.
Right.
Second,
what about us that do?
well, I don't want to catch a lift with any of you who've been drinking to the limit, obviously. Now we know this.
Yeah.
But the major point is that it's the people who have one or two wines, and that is a lot of people these days, because we're encouraged to be sophisticated and have wine with our dinners, and they're saying we're not going to be sophisticated anymore. We can't have a couple of wines or share a bottle amongst friends and drive home. You know, someone's going to have to be the time Nazi then. Well, you've had one drink, a standard drink and all that stuff, and it sort of goes on now, and we all know socially. And then, of course, there's one person there who's like the strict person, you know what I mean?
Yes,
It's socially awkward, but I don't think having a zero limit, which is, I believe, some crazy extremist view that you have, is going to work, because you don't drive as well, do you?
That's right. It's not my problem. David, Labor allowed the booze barons to liberalise access of booze throughout every supermarket and dairy across the land. How dare Labor even have an opinion on drowning New Zealand in booze? Is that a fair comment?
Oh, I think that we certainly liberalised it, and for a while actually booze was, the sales of booze, and I think it's still going on, is actually going down. But we definitely do have a culture which is about go out and binge and drink and fall over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I mean, I think that coming back to the point on the drink driving, I mean, the idea about we want it, getting it down from 80 to 50 or to 60, I mean, seems eminently sensible, because right now 80 means that you can drink 3/4 of a bottle of wine in basically one sitting and get in. Well, on an empty stomach or whatever, I can't do that. I can drive, but it's not very good driving. So it just seems to be, and at the same time, we know that 14 people will be alive if we were able to bring that limit down. So it seems to be a no-brainer to actually bring that in. Now, why isn't it? And I think you touched on it. I think it's Stephen Joyce is incredibly cautious about it.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do that. The only time he really stepped over the line to do something really outstanding was to say, well, let's cancel the gold card. And boom, that lasted all of about an hour and a half, and he had to reverse that. But what you're seeing with Stephen Joyce, he's meant to be sort of the go-get man who's meant to doing a lot of stuff. But when you think about it, you know, the Harbour Bridge just had a big study done it. He now wants to get another study to do it. Some of the other roading thing, he wants another study done. He wants another study done on the alcohol. This is a guy that's asking for more studies and more studies and more studies, rather than actually taking a sensible decision and actually saying, well, we could bring the alcohol limit down to 50 or 60, and we could save some lives. And not only that, 2/3 of New Zealanders will agree with us. I mean, it seems to be a bit of a no-brainer.
Especially when he did the cell phones. He just made that decision quite quickly, didn't he, to ban their cell phones.
Isn't it ridiculous that the government turned down this, and now dear old Darren Hughes, we have to rely on his private members bill to actually get any sensible legislation?
Well, he won't even be able to rely on it, because it's basically a lottery whether he actually gets it pulled out or not. And then, and Darren's been sensible about it, saying this is not a political issue.
He should be making it a political issue, but he's been bloody good about it, isn't he?
Well, he
has. He's being an adult. He's being sensible.
Well, let's face it. I mean, if it goes through and it actually does get a conscience vote in the House, and it does get through, then it will become a political issue, and it'll actually be one to Darren and, you know, not too many to the other side, I think, in a way. But we'll get a better result at the end of it, and I think that's the key thing.
Gareth Morgan suggested this week on Campbell Live that people turning up drunk and injured at our hospitals should be forced to pay the bill. Could user pay hangovers be a solution here?
I think it's a no-fault system, isn't it, the ACC? But then again, I mean, there's some situations where you have to turn up to a private clinic anyway after hours in certain parts of town, so people are facing that. But as far as making people pay goes, I'm not sure. If you're going to get so drunk and damaged and hurt other people and hurt yourself, shouldn't you pay? There's the criminal avenue that the police are very good at prosecuting at the moment, because it's one of their focus areas. I think they've made that quite clear. especially with the blitzes that have gone on recently, these dragnets basically, that they are clamping down on.
We could sharpen up on this because the other night I went out with the cops and my electorate just to see what's going on after midnight, you know, and I mean we picked up somebody who was twice over the legal limit, 18 years old. 2.5 hours later down at Central, we're still processing him through the myriad of nonsense and crap that you have to go. Now, I mean, these instruments are you know, you could do one to make sure they get them off the road, and then two to confirm it. But there's just the paperwork that the police have to go through is extraordinary. I mean, if they drink and they drive, then they basically deserve to do the time.
Who wins and who loses with this gutless decision by the government over not lowering the blood alcohol level, Tim?
It's in some ways it's a tough issue because we're dealing with percentages and figures and numbers. And for some people it is difficult to equate it exactly to drinks because the law won't be, you know, 3 standard drinks per hour or whatever that we can relate to. So it's a tough issue, but I think, yeah, there is a growing acceptance. And maybe it's to do with a lot of the conservative elements and pressure groups out there that are building up this resistance towards the free use of alcohol.
Who wins and loses?
Oh, I think the government sort of lost because it looked like they're sort of out of touch with what most New Zealanders think, and actually the growing problem that's being brought up by the police and the alcohol groups and that around the country. So they're on the back foot, I think.
Thank you to both. Back after the break. This is Citizen A. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Citizen A. We're reviewing the week with blogger Tim Selwyn and Auckland MP David Shearer. Issue 3 this week, it's by-election Orama with 3 electorates in possible play, Mana, Te Atatū and Manurewa. Both of you, let's get straight into this from the top. Let's first rate the likelihood. Mana is certain. What about Te Atatū and Manurewa, Tim?
Well, there's an issue with Te Atatū. I'm not sure whether the current MP, independent MP is going to go or not. Yep. Because the independent MP for Te Atatū would probably be wanting to move on to something that involves perhaps travel miles and flyby points and so forth. Yes. So he might be, the independent member for Te Atatū might be looking to exit perhaps to an international flavoured sense of employment. There's a situation over there perhaps. Yep. And if that pops up, I'm sure that the independent member for Te Atatū would be out of there quicker than you can say ciao. Okay. Manurewa is so solidly Labour. Yep. It's hugely Labour. You had David Hawkins, who is the brother of the incumbent MP, George Hawkins. He was the mayor down there for years. That's right. So when George Hawkins says he's going to run for the community board, I think
that's a clear
sign. He's been running since 1990 there. I mean,
and there's a deep friendship between him and Phil.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, Mana, we know about Te Atatū and Manurewa. You'll know the skivvy on this. What's going on?
Well, Manurewa, I think, as Tim says, is solidly Labour, and it's going to depend on what George decides he wants to do, whether he gets on the community boards, it's enough, or he wants to play it through to the end of the term. Yep. I think he'd probably play it through to the end of the term. It's cleaner for him. I think he'd prefer to do that. Te Atatū, I mean, all of those 3 electorates, they are certainly on paper they're Labour electorates. And they have very strong MPs whose personal following is bigger than the party vote. Yep. So in a sense, there's a little bit of slack there that if there's a by-election, Mana's got but also Chris has got 4,000.
That's because people don't like Tauhenere, though, isn't it?
Who likes Tauhenere? Come on. Okay, so let's come to the big question then. Okay, it's important for Labour to do very well in these electorates, right? This is going in. This could be
expected of them.
It's expected of them. So if they don't do very well, this augurs badly for 2011, doesn't it?
And Phil will be very, very angry if anything goes wrong. But I don't think, looking at the numbers, that anything will go wrong. We've had this Someone saying Jerome Meeker here,
Yep.
EPMU guy,
Yep.
strong guy with connections to South Auckland, might be challenging.
Yep.
And apparently 1st of September is the date for selection closing for
Yep.
Manarewa
Yep.
against George Hawkins. So that could be
David,
interesting.
you've fought a by-election in what was possibly the worst performance by National in a by-election in political history with Melissa Lee's train wreck. Does Labour hope that Jonathan Coleman will be the campaign manager for all three if they're up?
I think what National obviously will have learned a few lessons from Manel, and they're going to be making sure that they go into play. I mean, you know, you look at down and say of Heki Parata down in Mana. I mean, she's been the candidate down there. She's obviously going to be the candidate for National. She's a good operator. She's already in Parliament. So there's a bunch of they've got a number of things going for them. I think you're right. I mean, Labour obviously is going to go full out certainly on Mana. If Mana's going to be the first one that comes off the blocks anyway, and they will, and we want a good result. You know, let's face it. And it will be really good because it will also be we'll be able to trial a lot of the policy. We'll be able to trial. I mean, we'll be able to see what's.
Well, who will the candidate be, though? I mean,
and this comes to the next question. Candidates. Okay, let's talk about candidates. Why isn't Efeso Collins being considered for Labour? Brilliant Pacific Island leader.
Up here in Auckland.
He's the man who was thrown off Radio Pacific for Pacific Radio for criticising the PETA deal. And what about Deborah Manning, human rights lawyer? She was fantastic.
for Te Atatu.
For Te Atatu. Candidates for Labour. Who do you think?
Well, our old friend Deborah Manning.
Yes,
bless her.
wonderful.
She's
Bless
probably got the inside track, I would imagine, as far as Te Atatu goes. But that's very much up in the air. I don't know about that. As far as Mana goes, I've heard Chris Farfoy, who's...
He'd be good, wouldn't he?
He's the comms guy, isn't he, for Phil? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And John Pagani's the other comms guy, isn't he?
But it wouldn't be John, I don't think. John's not.
No, I mean
that's
his
his wife. Josie Pagani. Look, I've heard a whole bunch of names out there, but I mean, I was speaking to on Tuesday with my colleagues and everything. I couldn't distill any firm names coming in. I think that's going to come out in the next little while. People. I mean, when his decision came out of the blue. So, hang on a minute. There's a safe Labour seat out there, and people are going to.
A Mahari-like decision, wasn't it?
It was. I think, look, to be honest with you, there's not too many people that can actually decide their own future in politics, and it's. You know, she's been in there 10 years. I mean, it's a little bit like
well respected.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Pete Hodgson. You know, so that's it. I've had enough now. I'm going to go and do something else.
We've got to move on. Let's move on to the final words. Mr. Selwyn, your final word for the show this week.
Oh, it's just been looking around the town, and all the campaign hoardings are up and everything, and I think this is for the Auckland Super City, and I think these campaign hoardings are actually scaring off all of the usual candidates. They see the big tickets out there have dominated everything. It's too late now, even though the nomination process, it's too late now to enter, basically because of the funding. I mean, these guys are plastered everywhere, and I see your mate, Claudette Hawiti.
Ah, yes, Claudette.
Guess who she's running for?
National.
CNR, basically,
Interesting. I was disappointed as well. It was like finding out a friend of yours has become an evangelical Christian cop. Well, we won't be seeing her anymore, right? Mr. Shearer, what is your final word for the show?
Well, look, I've just come before the show from a company called Lanzatech. Lanzatech's got this fantastic technology where it can take the smoke coming out of smokestacks and convert that smoke with carbon dioxide, monoxide into fuel. I mean, unbelievable. There's another company I've just come across who's looking at a surface you can put on your roof that'll generate electricity more than the household underneath will need. We have got such amazing ideas out there in New Zealand, and we're not getting a lot of those ideas to market, and we're not commercialising it. We are relying on our farming, which is basically big products that we ship overseas. 2/3 of our exports, our income comes from doing things like that. I don't think we've touched and tapped into our real potential. We've got a clean green image. I'd like to see it a clean green and clever image. I'd like to see that clever brought up so we have these amazing technologies used and invested in, and we become a sort of a byword. New Zealand becomes a byword, just as it does for the Kiwi and the forests and mountains, etc., as being a really smart people. That's would be my